So look, I think what I want to highlight here is not only do you not need to lose your job, but more importantly, there is a growing demand for entrepreneurs that remain as employees inside of companies, and so kind of rebranding, reframing yourself in that role could be a very positive thing to look enhance your ability to make impacts and have a better job with your current employer. Defining intrapreneurs, first of all, they're super cool. I mean, look at this guy, right? A couple of sound bites here. One is they serve as major sources of productivity and innovation. Again, inside of companies, they're in it for more than a paycheck. In this case, likely some form of larger benefit and the joy, the passion to create, right? Create something new. Top right there. Entrepreneurs require autonomy, independence, and ability to experiment and freedom to pivot. So this may not be the way all managers treat their employees. That's probably an understatement, but I think understanding the need for entrepreneurs to succeed and to stay as highly valued employee may require managers to think a little differently, which may require you, if you are that entrepreneur, to educate, dare I say, train your manager to see a different management style. Finally, there's a need to be promoted and challenged, or if not, they may move to another company. Innovate or die. It sounds like a pretty extreme set of options there. Not my phrasing, others. But let's look at an example here. The Fortune 500 list. So since 1955, almost 90% of the companies on that list have merged, been acquired, or gone bankrupt. And I believe the theory is, or the actuality is, that the rate of disruption is actually increasing. So perhaps the question is, disrupt or die, or disrupt or be disrupted. Said differently, the risk maybe is not in pursuing, facilitating more intrapreneurship at your large company. The risk instead could be the opposite, right? If you don't pursue a more entrepreneurial style, at least for some part of your large company, do you face the same fate of these companies no longer on the list? Entrepreneurship can be a great strategy for attracting great talent. So many of you either are within this quote-unquote millennial generation and or are aware of the magnitude, the impact, the meaning of this generation and understanding kind of their needs, wants, and motivators. So in this case, 70% of millennials want to start their own company, according to one survey. They seek meaning, impact, autonomy, and creativity. So again, for those employees born roughly between 1982 and 2002, by the way, this is not a purely U.S. trend, psychographic trend here. But in order to attract and retain that great talent, which look over the years will be the leadership of these large organizations, you need to offer them opportunities to act like entrepreneurs inside of the company. Again, if that's you, again, this is part of the pitch, right? To train your managers to give you the freedom to pursue more entrepreneurial styles, tactics inside of your current role. As I mentioned, this is the largest demographic in the U.S. with 92 million people. And here, research from Deloitte and Goldman Sachs noting, no surprise, as they reach their prime, their impact on the economy and, of course, by extrapolation on individual companies is going to be huge. So missing out on that, the best in that demographic would be, again, a serious business risk, right? Entrepreneurship is growing. So here are two statistics. The number of U.S. internal corporate innovation incubators, that is, again, where you're trying to essentially launch startups inside of a company. Those may become new departments, new initiatives. They may also be spun out to be entirely separate companies. But the number of incubators inside of large companies has grown from 12 in 1980, pretty dismal, to 7,000 in 2016. So think about that again. The idea is, do you create one at your company, or will your company be left behind over the years as they are disrupted? Second, there are 38% of the world's top 200 companies have innovation labs. So if you, one of the students, are seeking to be an entrepreneur, but also to be a part of, an employee at a large company, this is a screening tool for you, right? A screening tool to understand where to seek employment. And then once you're there, where to pursue roles, right? That is, say, within these innovation labs. And if your current employer does not have these innovation labs, you now have more fodder to make the case for them to create one and for you to play a large role in that. What are some questions that entrepreneurs ask? The first here, what can I create that does not exist? So this is different from being told what to create, being told what to do, instead being given time to explore the unexplored, right? So think about, the way that Google or 3M will give many of their employees, call it a day a week, roughly 15-20% of their time, again, to do things like this, to explore products that do not yet exist, to meet needs that maybe perhaps are not quite understood. It's my understanding that Gmail, in fact, was one of these outcomes from an employee or employees pursuing new ideas, being essentially entrepreneurs for one day of the week. The second there, what resources can I find or aggregate that others overlook in order to build something new? So, many definitions of entrepreneurship refer to this ability to find resources that are often viewed as scarce, reframing something that most did not consider a resource into being a resource for you, the entrepreneur or intrapreneur. So, at your current job, let's say, assuming you're not planning to leave to start a startup, how can you reimagine what resources are at your fingertips, and how might you pull those together to have what you need to launch a new product, a department, or initiative within the organization? And the next, thinking a little more long term. So what are customers going to ask for 3 to 5 years from now, not in 1 to 3 quarters from now? Again, some big picture thinking, which requires rather managers to give entrepreneurs some latitude. And by the way, it's not all going to work out, right? Just as if you were an entrepreneur, there will be failure, and so part of this is not just functionality or departments or roles or titles, but also its culture, right? As those large organizations launch their incubators, part of it is communicating the freedom that employees have to fail, to mess up, right, and that they won't be punished for doing so. Some conclusions: entrepreneurship is not limited to startups in Silicon Valley or the Boston area, or pick your known city of innovation around the world. It happens everywhere, from one-person companies to 100,000-person organizations. The second here, big companies can attract and retain talent while also creating new revenue opportunities if they focus more on facilitating entrepreneurship. So again, the risk really is, what do we lose if we don't pursue a strategy like this internally? Related to that, if your organization is large and well established, it should ask itself, does the fate of the fallen Fortune 500 companies lie ahead for us? Is it true that we innovate or die, disrupt or be disrupted? Finally, get out that pen and paper, pause the video, and think about these questions for a few minutes. The first, if you're an employee at a large organization, how can you get involved with entrepreneurship initiatives? Who can you talk to tomorrow, let's say? No time like the present. If you're an employee at a large organization, again, how can you become a leader in entrepreneurship and increase your ability to make big impacts by taking on new and more significant roles? And by the way, if those roles don't quite yet exist, one piece of advice I've heard over the years is to do what a person in that role would be doing, do it well, and then once you've done that and proven it rather, then go to ask for permission to create that role. And when asked about what it might look like, you describe what you're already doing successfully. The third, if you're founding a startup, how could you partner with large companies that have entrepreneurship programs? Perhaps you can serve, your company can serve, as part of their external innovation or R&D or research and development team. With that, we will see you on the next video.